Na de haladjunk tovább a programmal, és meg szeretném kérni Péter Sandkuijlt, did I say right? Sandkuijl? Péter Sandkuijlt a Checkpoint képviseletében, hogy a Softwaredefined Protection témáról tartsa meg az előadását. Peter, please start your presentation now. Thank you.
Logistics, right?
I think you can start.
Yeah, so we just do it like this? I'd fix it up. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Do you want to?
No, I'd rather not.
Okay.
So this is easier.
Try to keep this close.
Okay.
All right.
People in the back can hear me as well? Can somebody raise their hand if they can hear me? Thank you very much. So my name's Peter. I'm impressed by the pronunciation. I'm from the Netherlands, and my name even in the Netherlands is hard. So very good job there. In Checkpoint, I'm what they call the European SE manager. So I represent a team. We travel around. Actually, my guys travel around, and we come out when things get tough or complex, and we focus on new technologies. And thank you very much for listening to me today in English. I did have another option, but that would have been Dutch. I guess this is a better option for you guys. I was going to say that I understood Hungarian better than I thought, because until I got the translating device, I actually understood Snowden, Gartner, WikiLeaks, and defacement. So there were some good words that I picked up, and guessing at the last 10 minutes that I got from the presentation was quite interesting. When I entered the security industry back in 1995, the world was a lot easier than it is today. I taught people about how do you connect to the internet, for one, because at the time it was not so ubiquitous as it is today. And I also explained why would you be looking at security. And the way we looked at it at the time is we have a secure network that we completely trust, which is our internal network, right? The local area network where we manage the workstations and we have some servers and it's all connected. And then I connect to the big bad world out there, because there's people that want to break into my network and they want to abuse whatever I have or steal my data. And with that, we needed a barrier. And this is how networks were designed. We saw a lot of networking happening, of course. We put some kind of device in between, usually a firewall, because at the time that was all you needed. So there was some antivirus on the desktop, but that was it. And fast forwarding to today, we see that many of the networks of customers we visit are still built more or less on the same principle. We still see customers having a network with dozens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of workstations, all in the same network, no security layers in between. If we're lucky, they segregated the servers from the workstations, but in many networks we also see that the servers are still in between the workstations as well. And the fact is, where in the past we had policies that said traffic from that trusted internal LAN is allowed to go to the internet provided it is HTTP and they're going to visit a website. Today it doesn't suffice anymore. Today we see that very specifically we know that users are going to be allowed to go to the internet using HTTP, and they're doing all kinds of stuff there. We see that people, next to visiting web pages, they chat with their family, they look at videos online, they listen to streaming audio, they play games. Think about what you can do today, and there's lots of things happening. And the shift that we have seen has really put up some challenges for our customers. So our customers came back to us and they said, hey, we're struggling with this. We don't know exactly how to deal with all this new functionality. 10 years ago, we, as an organization, said, this is the IT security policy. I control what machine comes in, what the policy on the machine is, and that's going to be it. Today, that's completely turned around. People come in with their iPhone, they come in with their iPad or whatever device they like if they're in the Android camp. And they will tell you, I need email on this device. I need to be able to do my job on this device. So the IT managers, where they used to set whatever was happening, now need to find a way to securely enable that. And that's coming with quite a bit of challenge. So one of the things that we as an organization set out to do is let's start talking to our customers about how we look at securing networks, rather than telling you what feature I have in my exact products. If you're interested in that, we're very happy to explain, of course. We will show you, we will do a demo or a proof of concept, but we feel it's much more important to go out and talk to organizations. So this year, I've been visiting customers throughout Europe and sitting down with them for 2-3 days and saying, okay, talk to me about your network. Show me how you do things. And you know, I'm not trying to sell just Checkpoint to you. If you have a third-party IPS, that's fine. But tell me, how do you use it? How do you manage it? How's your change management and everything that's happening inside? And let's see how that would fit in trying to secure your business. Because in the end, you know, probably none of you make your money securing networks, right? That's me. It's my job. That's what we do. What you guys are doing is you're running a business. You're trying to make money, whatever way you do it. You develop products, you develop software, you have a call center, you have outgoing connections. You try to protect the values that make your company run. Whatever is inside, whatever makes the company tick. We call it the crown jewels internally. You know, what's your crown jewels in the company? That's a question I ask a lot of customers. So with that, we started with something that we now call an enterprise security blueprint. And I wanted to spend my time that I have to talk to you about how does that work together. Because we've established technologies anywhere. Well, people, if I would do a show of hands, if I ask who doesn't have a smartphone, I probably wouldn't see a lot of hands. You know, even my mother started using a smartphone. She's 72, the good lady. And she's asking me all of these questions that I had 5 years ago, but they make perfect sense. And she said, I have to do this because otherwise I go old. So bless her, I like her for that. Last week we had a little party because I bought another house and we invited some friends. And one of my friends, he builds interiors. You know, they works in a company and they have projects. And he was telling me, Peter, did you know that in a couple of years from now, my refrigerator will be connected to the internet and it will tell the grocery store when I need more milk? It's like, yeah, I kind of am in that world because I think it's kind of scary that people tap into my house and they figure out what's in the refrigerator because what else can they see? So we had a funny, and the thing that struck me is that what we have been living for so long is now actually reaching people who are not IT at all. You know, he still doesn't have a flat screen TV at home, but he was explaining to me how his refrigerator was going to be connected to the internet. So they call it the Internet of Things. You know, it's where everything gets interconnected, and we as people are online all the time as well, where we don't stop to think as much about what we're doing anymore. The app asks you where you are. Do you agree with that? Yeah, that's fine. Do I realize the app is going to be tracking me for the rest of my life on my phone, and anybody who taps into that knows exactly where I am? If I talk to younger people, they're like, who cares? I don't care. Today in organizations, I still think we care a little bit about things like that because we value those crown jewels. We value the data that we're looking at. We also see that threats have definitely changed, where I remember the I love you virus. I was in Checkpoint for 3 months at the time, and my manager at the time called me out into his office and said, Peter, look at this. I got 1,500 emails in my outbox. It's like, oh my God. So I felt like in slow motion running to his machine, pulling the plug, saying, what happened? He said, yeah, our CEO sent me an email and the title said, I love you. I said, are you crazy? He said, no, I thought it was a nice thing from him to do. I said, you got to be realistic about this. Our CEO will never send you an email, I love you. So if he does, something's wrong. Think about that. You know, think about that and be responsible for your actions. If we look at it today, I'll share a little story about an attack that happened on the New York Post. It's a bit a longer time ago now, but it still very well reflects how attacks today have changed from the past. I still have to talk, and the reason I'm doing this, I still have to explain to big enterprise customers, you know, thousands of people working in the company. Nobody is tapping on your front door where you have firewalls and IPSs and hacking straight into your database, getting the data. It doesn't work like that anymore. Trust your security guys. They built a better network than that. So with the New York Post, they wrote an article about somebody in China, I think it was a prime minister or even the president, and due to some corruption activities, he pocketed quite a few $1 million, and he said, guys, that's it, I'm going to retire and I'm going to have a happy life. And people in the New York Post, they found out. Sorry, it's the New York Times. I'm saying New York Post, it's New York Times. And they finally published an article exposing him. So that was a big shame, of course. And with that, there was a lot of discussion. You can understand the Chinese didn't like it that much because their country and their culture is very much about honor and honorability. I just heard that they need luxury items to show that they're successful, but they take pride from that. So being exposed of doing stuff you're not supposed to do is not a good thing. So the way they got into the New York Times was sending a very specific phishing email that had a link inside, trying to entice people to click on it. And they didn't target the editor of the article, because he wouldn't fall for that. You know, he would be smart enough to think, I wrote this, I published this, so somebody's going to be coming after me. So they managed to target a secretarial type of person within the organization. And by getting her to click on the link, it downloaded a Trojan. And the Trojan then downloaded a remote access tool. And that was the first step in the attack, because then they could get some access to the machine of the secretary. From there, they figured out, we need to get to the mailbox of this editor. So let's scan the network. Let's figure out how it's built. They figured out where the Exchange server was, used an additional exploit to then elevate the rights they had on the Exchange server to tap into the mailbox of the editor of the New York Times in the US. And then they realized, you know, the source didn't come from the US, because obviously if you get that information, you're closer to the East. So they managed to use the wide area network of the New York Times to get into the editor in Asia that was responsible and actually had the contacts with the person that was providing the information, tapped into that mailbox, and that person was exposed and hasn't been heard of since. So this is, if you're determined enough, how people manage to get into networks, and it is not a one-step process. So what we, as enterprises, have to think about is, how do we deal with this? We can't predict anything that might happen. So we have to build a layered structure that says, let's find a way how we can, even if they break through my first layer, it doesn't expose me for everything that I got, right? And the model I explained, how we used to build networks, does exactly that. If I have a LAN that I trust, a firewall that protects it, and the big, bad, ugly internet, somebody manages to get access to my machine, and think about it, those iPads and iPhones, they don't spend all of their time inside your office, so they're exposed to risk even when you're not protecting them. If they get in and manage to get full access to your network, that's not where you want to be. So some of the networks of people that we talked to started looking like this, grown organically over time. 10 years ago, we needed a firewall. Then 5 years ago, we realized that we needed an IPS. Oh, and we also have some antivirus. 2 years ago, Anonymous started attacking us, and we needed DDoS technology. And in the good days, you know, we bought the best products we could find. Check Point partnered with lots of these complementing vendors, where we had antivirus technology connected to our software, where you could finally build a complete picture that said, hey, I've got the best of everything that's out there, and I'm protecting my network the best way possible. Today, the economy is not so good. I talk to organizations that are telling me, I need to cut down cost 30%. And I need to find a way to do this. Effectively, I need to do more with hopefully the same amount of people, but sometimes even less people, and there's less budget to do it as well. So the organizations we talk to throughout Europe, and they're not just the small ones, they're also the very big ones that have tens of thousands of people, they are talking to us, how can we better protect our networks, spending less money? Can I somehow consolidate all of these technologies, because my data is going all around the place, and I don't know how to control it anymore. Because it's not about access. You know, getting access to networks is not that hard. What people are looking for today is data, because the value of networks today is not so much in, you know, your network wire or your switch or anything like that. It's in the documents that are on there, trying to find a competitive edge, trying to find your patents or more information or things like that. So we started saying, okay, let's build an architecture and start talking to our customers about this. So we call that software-defined protection. You'll find out lots of people today are talking about software-defined. If you are into the market space, you probably heard about software-defined networking, which is an attempt to escape from the lock-in that hardware vendors have today, where they connect you to their usually proprietary technology and trying to make that much broader and giving you a control layer that says, I can have a white label switch fabric and I give the instructions from a centralized smart component rather than putting all the smart into my switch itself. Very scary to the switching vendors out there, of course. So they have two options, it's budge or burst. So you'll see that the larger switching companies are making a serious effort to jump onto that train because they realize this is something that will be happening. Google, for instance, is already running a software-defined network. So in the software-defined network, we identify three different components. And the first one is what we call the enforcement layer. And you'll find out when you look at the press and the marketing, even our data sheets, a lot of emphasis is put on this because this is where the action happens. If an exploit comes in, we can block the exploit in the gateway. If a virus comes in, we can figure out and we can halt the virus before it reaches your endpoint. If you're sending data through your network and you virtualized your firewalls, they will pick it up in the virtualized space and they will prevent whatever you want preventing from happening. But you know what? Those enforcement points are not the key component. They're not they're the final result that you are looking for. But if you think about it, your networks weren't designed to block stuff. They were allowed to allow your people to work. This is just enforcing what you have in your minds about what is a security policy, how do I deal with the information flows within my network. Much more challenging is how do we feed the enforcement layer? And this is the second component that we call the control layer. Because I can have a static device. If I don't continuously feed it with new information, it's going to be fresh for a very little while. Think about antivirus, right? You installed it a year ago, you never updated it. Is it going to protect you against viruses that are happening today? Probably not, right? You still need the legacy information, but you also need what happened yesterday or the day before. The challenge has become, how do I update my technology? Because sending updates once a day is not going to do it. Even servers that distribute malware change address on the internet every single hour. So imagine Check Point's got hundreds of thousands of gateways spread out throughout the world. How do I push an update to more than 100,000 gateways every single hour? You guys would go crazy, right? You would be like, hey, hang on, stop forcing me to do updates. Our business doesn't work like this. We need to test and accept and do all kinds of things like that. So with the control layer, it becomes important to analyze information and get a real-time feed about intelligence surrounding the protections and being able to apply it once the situation itself will happen. So we have shifted all of our intelligence out of the gateway, out of that enforcement layer, and told the enforcement layer, hey, if you need it, go and ask there. And there happens to be in the cloud. Since we are always connected today, this is where we can also bring the information. Because on one side, we are looking at access control. Who's allowed to go where? The traditional firewall function, basically. Although today, as part of that decision, we also include user identities. Because we don't know what the user is. In the past, we had a kind of an idea because they only had a fixed machine and we knew what IP address was going to be assigned to it. It was usually the same IP address so we could identify a user. But today, the user might be on the iPhone or the iPad or the laptop. They might be in a different role or in a different section of the network. And since the way to control this has become much more complex, we also need to follow that and much more look at who are you, what are you doing at this moment in time, and are you entitled to get this access? Are you entitled to go to that server? And if you do, are you entitled to look at the data that's on the server, whatever the data or the application might be? So much more is getting involved in protecting the networks, and the security decisions that have to be made are much more complex. One of the most challenging parts of big organizations that we talk to is how do I translate your access control that you built a long time ago into something tangible that says, okay, can I now add users and applications and information about data, and when are you allowed to do this? Because the sheer complexity is quite big, and if people haven't thought about it, it becomes a process. And those processes tend to last from anything between 3 months and hasn't been finished since we started talking on this 3 years ago. So it's quite a challenging thing that we see. And the third component is threat prevention. We allow HTTP to the internet, right? We allow our people to browse. But do we also allow that the response from that web server contains an exploit that might get control over the machine because you got tricked into clicking on a link, or the server was completely valid, but it got impacted by somebody from the outside that attacked it? So what we need to get to is a point where we have more agility that says new things just happened, and we obviously monitor this throughout the world, and we, on a real-time basis, can then feed the enforcement points based on the policies that you create. So you can set like a global type of policy that allows you to look inside the traffic and figure out, should I be doing this, yes or no? Today we're actually moving partially from post-infection to we already know somebody has been infected, therefore we can protect you, into we simply don't know, but we know what's right. And we'll start figuring out what's right and prevent anything outside of that. And that will give you an edge into people being very specific in designing attacks to get into your networks. That obviously only works if we feed the intelligence. So rather than being on our own, we said we're going to be reaching out. As an example, we are a Microsoft security partner. That basically means you sign a contract with your blood that you will not disclose whatever's inside the exploits they are fixing on Patch Tuesday. So whenever Microsoft releases their Windows updates, we can update our technology that says we will create that time window for you so you have time to plan your patching. Because you don't patch the day Microsoft releases, right? You need some time, you need some distribution, and the time window as of then opens, because people who are looking at the other side of this, they reverse engineer that patch and figure out what was fixed and therefore know how to break it if you haven't fixed yourself. Next to that, we are involved in various certs. We talk to the industry, we follow mailing lists. We have our own reverse engineering team, so we reverse engineer our own products and competitor products. We look inside, we try to figure out how the technology works and how somebody would be thinking when they break into that technology, and also allow us to improve our own technology and feed us. We also talk to third parties. Recently we introduced something where we can add very industry-specific feeds. There's organizations out there looking very specifically at very ugly things in the internet, like child pornography or ransomware or the financial world, and they very closely monitor what's happening in that space. And they can create something that's called indicators, and the indicators allow us to look inside traffic for things like that happening in a network that passes through your gateway. So we can connect those feeds back into our enforcement layers as well, allowing them, those enforcement layers, to become more intelligent when investigating the traffic that passes by. Obviously, none of this works if you don't have an appropriate management layer. And with consolidation of technologies, with more and more getting into your management platform, you'll have a need to get more modularity in there. You'll have a need to segregate duties. If you're a larger organization, maybe the guy managing the firewall is not the same guy as managing the IPS technology. But what we do see today is those technologies are being combined on the very same platform. So we need to find a way to provide those people to do what they need to do, to get inside of the policies, to make them complementary, sometimes a little bit overlapping, and allow you to project your vision on security into something that will be enforced in reality on an actual enforcement point. I'm speeding up a little bit as I see my time passing by. I'll make it. What we finally going forward project, what we see, what we expect to happen, is that you guys will give up looking at every single protection that a security vendor brings. You guys will get to a point where you will accept, you know what, the feed of information up to this level is something that I will trust and I will automatically start applying. That will go, it goes today for antivirus, right? But you will get to that point for IPS as well. You will then probably start automating that with anything that's in your network. So you will start connecting your security to your VMware environment. You will start connecting your security to your change management environment. You'll start connecting your change management system for new services, new deployments, using APIs to feed the security information that says, update yourself. So finally, all of this will come together if you get visibility on data. It's fantastic if you have an IPS. If you don't look at what comes out, you're really driving blind. You know, you're going to hit the wall at one day, you just don't know when. So finally, visibility in something, and that will work if you have consolidated technologies. If you get visibility and reporting on what's happening, you'll be able to make some decisions. So in summary, things come together where throughout your network, security technologies will start integrating together. And the strength is going to be in the ability to feed, manage, and get visibility surrounding the whole environment. So with that, I see I just made it in time. Thank you very much for the time.